G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by Space Tomato and Seer the Six. It's been a while since we've seen you, Seer, and I think it's only Space Tomato's second episode, but they were both very keen to do one with each other, and I was lucky enough to get invited. but we
Keen.
were we've been talking before the show, and we got some concerns about where they're going with the gameplay loops. So I think I'll let before we kick it off though, I will actually I've just changed my mind. Hashtag Jane in the comments if you would like to win yourself an F7A upgrade and Super Hornet. Fortunately, Eric Lanza passed away, and his friend is looking for a new home for his deceased mate's ship. So if you're interested in that, just be subscribed and leave a comment below. So Sia, take us off. You were soapboxing a little bit before the show, and me and Space were like, whoa. But yeah,
Take a
tell
step
it.
back.
Yeah. Tell us your concerns, and we'll go from there.
So, essentially, I think what was it, about like a month ago, they released the repair and the refuel, calling all devs. Correct me if I'm wrong. And like I've been out of Star System for a while. I've been watching calling all devs. I've been watching everything, but I actually haven't been playing because I've been so busy with my personal life. But I mean, when I watched that, I felt like something in my brain kind of just went, no. And Space Tomato, he capitalized. So like this was him saying, this wasn't me, but I agree with him because I was thinking the same thing, which was they're copycatting what they've done with mining, since that's more fleshed out than any other gameplay loop, excuse me, rather than like combat that we have. That's more that's more demanding, I would say. And they're taking a lot of what they did and they're just copy and pasting it. It looks like for refueling, and I'm worried that they're going to do it so on and so on. And what I mean by that per se is that just how they want these mini games to be with all this fine control and stuff, sometimes less is more. And we'll go into that more and more. But like we're today, this is mainly us talking about how we feel like a gameplay loop should be made
Mm.
from on paper to implementation in game when people are actually using it, not just evocati when we're actually doing it every day, like how mining is right now.
All
So
right.
that's all I have to say so far.
So just for my sanity, a little bit of clarification. You don't think they're going to be doing
Sanity.
the same exact gameplay? What you're essentially saying is they're going to start with like a core mini game and build up from there. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not, obviously mining isn't going to be refueling. That's like serious stupid. No,
Mm.
that's not. Thank you, but yeah, that's not what I meant. I mean taking the fundamentals of how things work, and they're just going to do it for refueling.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, do you want to talk a little bit about what the current plan is for refueling then, and we'll go from there? Do you want to use that as the
Yeah.
test
If I
bed, or do you how do
sure,
you want to?
sure. Okay, so we'll basically start with my soapbox, I guess. So so for people who are watching the stream that are saying, "Who are you, Sir the Six, and why are you so butthurt?" It's because I work on a tanker, a real aircraft tanker. I work on the KC-46 Pegasus, which is the Air Force's replacement for the KC-10 and the KC-135, which are area refuelers. And the one thing that just doesn't make sense to me, which I've talked about with other people I've worked with, which is the whole aspect of them doing the whole fine tuning with controlling fuel flow and controlling the psi or pressure of it versus versus these different tanks that you can have for all these other spaceships in game. I'm just thinking, why do you need to do that? That's just asking for way too much work on your end, and that can just get way too frustrating easily. Like, look, if you want this to be short and simple for at least refueling, like with a Starfare Gemini, all you need to do is just make the gameplay loop per se is the person actually controlling the boom and making sure they're properly connected and staying properly connected to the spaceship, and that's basically it. You shouldn't be adding all these other external factors. And I get it, like you're trying to make it fun, but at what point is it just too much between fun and between actually just getting something to work the right way so that everybody can like get the feel for it? It's kind of like hover mode when they made it too realistic and they slammed it way back. I wouldn't even say realistic. They made it too they made
Just
it too
weird.
modern.
Mm.
Yeah, it was basically like they looked at a Harrier and they said, okay, we see how a Harrier works, so we're gonna base our flight model off the Harrier for hover mode. Instead, when they should have based it off the F-35, which obviously they've done now. But I mean, you get the idea. So you guys well, I wouldn't say digress. You guys converse now what you guys think.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, Space Tomato give us your thoughts on that as well.
Well, like I said before, I haven't actually gotten much experience with what they're actually planning on doing. I haven't read through it. No, sorry, it's a video. I haven't watched the video. I haven't gotten any summaries or anything like that. I kind of skimmed a little bit, um, but haven't gotten much on the specifics of refueling in terms of gameplay developments or loops themselves. I I find myself agreeing to an extent, like you said, being worried about things being a little too similar when they're different
Mm,
gameplay elements. The whole idea of them being a mini game, I find myself separating different things into different categories. But take something like hacking. I expect hacking to be a mini game,
mm.
like in other games, Bioshock, Mass Effect,
Yeah,
Deus Ex, whatever you want. I expect refueling or medical gameplay to be a step higher than that. Something that's more than just a mini game, but rather a full
Operation.
on,
Zzz, zzz,
yeah,
zzz,
like
zzz.
like 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 actual custom gameplay, like you're talking about, Seer, that it feels entirely different and unique from something else. So much to the point, like you said, where let's say for medicine, you need to identify a wound, understand it, and pick the correct serums and stuff to treat that. That could have nothing to do with mining. So
exactly.
I
That
think
could be the
they
mini game itself.
I think they all have to kind of have a realism basis as well, though. I don't want to feel like I'm just jumping through hoops because it has to be a mini game. I want it to feel like there's a reason why I'm doing that, and that it
exactly.
actually is a little bit like what I should be doing, not like just pulling levers and shit because they told me I have to.
The
Yeah.
the best way to describe it is it needs to be dynamic and genuine. It shouldn't be a forced thing that it's like it has to be a forced gameplay loop. Like we get it with mining, and it could be the same with collecting gas, where you have all these different types of gas, and
Mhm.
each could be more volatile or less volatile. Which I understand you're trying to monitor it so you make sure you're not going too fast or too slow. Like I know when you're working on pure oxygen on aircraft, there's strict guidelines you have to follow, and just getting to work on it is a mini game in itself. They could do something like that for gas cloud mining,
Mm.
but you don't really need to do all that for something like refueling when you have all these internal components that are regulating most of that for you. So it's like just keep it simple. They're not
You,
stupid, but just keep it simple.
you've just hit on something that I've got to ask both of you. Then let's look at mining real quickly. And the thing I want to look at is this game was meant to be a skill based game, right? Now, at the moment, I wouldn't call mining skill based, I would call it knowledge based, right? You've got to know the right
Absolutely.
heads, you've got to know the right add ons, and now we've got subcomponents coming as well. And I think it's more where you go to get the rocks and all that type of thing. I don't think it's like, let's be honest, it's not that hard to keep a bar inside a green zone, um, in my opinion.
Um, okay, I see where you're getting at, but I mean, your your skill levels based on the knowledge you have. For example,
True.
this is a cinema camera. If I don't know what I'm doing with light shaping and all this other BS that you have to do with being a filmmaker or being a videographer, it doesn't matter how nice my camera is. I can have a $10,000, $20,000 camera, but if I don't know the fundamentals of how to use that camera
Yeah.
and the knowledge behind lighting, my general image is going to look like garbage. But if I have the fundamentals and I use something like a cell phone, I can still make that image look great. So your
Mm.
skill is based off your knowledge. So a
Yeah, true.
person that has a high like you don't have to have a like they kind of go together. If you have a grasp on something, then the skill that goes with it is more evolved versus somebody who doesn't. Like if I gave you a camera and I try to make you do the
Mm.
same thing as me, then your skill level is going to be lower because you don't have the knowledge behind it, if you know what I mean.
But can you see how yeah, see I question how good the variation is there. As in if it's just skill based, does that like so skill is like a dexterity. So I'm wondering if they're
I can
shifting
see what
from
you're saying.
from the skill to a knowledge, because if it's knowledge based like you're suggesting, there's not going to be a disparity. Let's like be an obvious one: old and young. Young people have a lot better dexterity than an older person,
Yeah.
where a younger person, example, let's take being a mercenary in this game. Younger people are going to be better at being mercenaries because they can just click heads. It's just that simple. but yes, the gameplay is slowed down in this game, so that does also allow older people to kind of catch up, and that knowledge and skill and experience, as in tactics, that they'll definitely have a strength in this game, and I think that's why some young people might shy away from it. But I think you can see what I'm trying to get at, like to try and be all
Yeah, I totally
encompassing.
understand.
I think you need a bit of both, and to me, there's not as much skill in mining. Maybe that's because there's more skill in, say, something like being a mercenary. So there will be certain professions that are more knowledge based. So maybe I need to look at that in a more broad
Okay. No, I see what you're
thing.
saying. So
Yeah,
basically, what we're trying to say is that mining is more on your reflexes because, like you said, you have to keep that stupid bar inside of there.
yeah,
But I mean, your skill or your knowledge would come in of okay, if I know, let's say I want to mine an asteroid that has more volatile, then my knowledge would allow me to know okay, I need these subcomponents, I need these attachments, so I have a wider range, so
mm.
I can make up for my slower reflexes as being an older person that plays Star Citizen by having that gap. So
Yeah.
like I understand what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying
I'm,
to
I'm
argue with you or
no,
counter
no,
you.
no, no. I'm
It's
just
more of a conversation.
yeah. It is a conversation, and I'm trying to kind of like because I'm now a little worried. Like I've caught myself, and I'm kind of like, well, does that mean they're going to make certain professions that are better for older people and certain professions that are better for younger people, or are they going to try and encompass the whole thing and make it very what do you call it? Not acceptable or versatile. The word I'm looking for, so everyone can be inclusive. That's the word I'm looking for.
Universal.
Yeah,
Universal. Yeah, yeah,
universal.
yeah.
Well, I think it's easier to make something knowledge based because you don't have to
True.
create anything new. You just have to maintain the database that, you know, determines those values that people are remembering. I think making something more skill based is more difficult. I think this isn't I'm not making a prediction here, but I think it could be possible to focus on making it knowledge based until everything is a little more solidified before introducing that skill. Something that I reviewed on my new 313 patch update, and I've heard some people
Mm,
mumble about a little bit, is the new refining screen that you get in
yeah.
the refinery stations. It gives this overlay of a rock with different concentration points and different attributes about the rock. And while it could just be site dressing, it most likely is. I feel like it really gives this kind of look into what we want with mining. The ability to know what's going on with that rock and have the skill to pick out exactly what we need to do it. I'm
Well,
hoping that's where we can go.
Yeah,
let,
I can relate to that.
let me give you a small example of how I would do it then. So at the moment, when I remember when I went out with you, Space, and I've been out with you too, Seer, and we did mole mining, and there'd
Oh
be,
God.
say, two of us in the turret, and one of us would just dial it to 100, and the other guy would sit there and do it. Now, the best times we had, and you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong, is where we were interacting and talking with each other and getting stuff to work. Wouldn't it be far more interesting if you had kind of one head that was kind of like it had a negative and a positive probability, and the other one counteracted that. And so basically, you've got to work with the different percentages on each, and you're trying to find that gold zone on both of them,
You
rather
can
than
do
just
that.
you
I
can, but it's
mean,
not forced. Do
with
you know what
the
I'm trying to say?
variables that they've given you. Yeah, it's not forced, but
Yeah,
we don't have the economy to back up that kind of
exactly.
discrimination
But
when it comes to that stuff.
I'm hoping it will eventually go there. And so yeah, you can
Yeah.
still make money on a low end rock, but like something that's more expensive, like what are the expensive ones at the moment? Quantanium and Hadanite or whatever.
Quantanium,
Yeah,
yeah.
uh, those ones that are the real pinnacle, they really require multiple people working together because that is a really cheap skill gameplay where when you force
Mhm.
people to work together. And I don't know about you guys, but they're the best gaming moments for me. The ones where you got to work together with other people. My favorite games at the moment are co-op games. So everything from like
Yeah.
Left 4 Dead, Deep Rock Galactic. I even tried Outriders, but that was terrible in my opinion. But I'm looking forward to other ones coming this year as well. So we've got Aliens
Mhm.
Colonial Fire Team, and there's another one that I've just completely forgotten. But I digress. Um,
Yeah.
just multiplayer games where you got to work together, and I was sold on the whole concept of the constellation, that four players working together type thing. And if they can broaden that, especially in bigger ship, like we're looking at a tier 0 versus like let's take salvage. Like I think the Reclaimer is going to be a far more enjoyable experience for me than say a Vulcan, because I want to have that interaction with other people. But
Mhm.
that's just me. Do you think there should be a different gameplay element? Is essentially what I'm asking, between a solo experience and a multiplayer experience? And do you think that's an easier skill-based way to do it? So, Space, I'll let you go first.
Well, that actually kind of plays into one of the questions I had in notes for today. Just the idea of does one of these gameplay loops change over time? The best example we would have for this is something like mining. And while we have this tier system where we step through what they tell us is tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, however many tiers there are, we also have this sort of ship based system. And it's basically, this is small ship mining, this is medium ship mining, this is large ship mining. We have no freaking clue what large ship mining is going to be. And
You can,
I
you
feel
can.
like,
Sorry, I
I
know I'm
mean,
going to.
we have an idea in terms of like,
Well, let's take the
no, go
Orion.
ahead.
You're using the example of mining. Now, if you look at all
Mhm.
the, you can actually look at the stations, a lot of the stations on an Orion, and I don't think it's as detailed as I want it to be, because basically you've got one mining, like the actual one mining head. You've got a one that crushes up the rocks to make them smaller so you can actually mine them, and then you've got two tractor beams, and then you've got a
Mhm.
refinery station. We have refining.
It's
Tractor beams, I don't think are going to be that amazing. And it's the same mining feature. So like what I'm talking about is it's not scaled to the number of players. Like it would be way
well,
cooler if there's something like the person with the tractor beam's got to manage, like hold the rock in place, but that's obviously not going to be a
well,
thing
that's what I
because
mean. That's what I imagine it's going to be. I think it's exactly like you said before. You're going to have somebody with one tool and somebody with another tool who can't do the same thing, who have to figure out a way to work together. This person's going to have to use the tractor beam to hold this rock out of the way. If that rock gets in the way, it explodes. Suddenly, this person's going to have to worry about
Chasing
damaging
it
the
down with the
mining arm,
tractor
the
beam.
cockpit. Yeah, and you'll have the other person who's working with the mining laser, who obviously can't go in until he has a clear shot. It's just I think it will be like that. And I think once they start bringing in these larger ships and larger professions, I hope we'll get some of the trickle down from that into the more simplified versions of these professions. I,
I mean,
I think that's a tall order, but
it's pretty simple. And what I feel like what we're trying to get across for the people that are going to be watching this is, look, CIG doesn't have to rely on forcing these mini games that you have to do. The mini game is in itself is being able to cooperate with another person that you're playing with and getting your value added gameplay. Sorry, DG, I'm quoting you, but getting your value added gameplay within these professions just by cooperating with people, because it actually makes dynamic content. It was just like with freaking the Jumptown Wars. You had dynamic content just because you had one point of interest where everybody wanted to get a bunch of money, and then you had a bunch of other people who wanted PvP. So then it was just pretty dynamic. Like that, and CIG didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to do anything. They just sat back and just took
yeah,
notes.
it feels like you can sum it up so simply. If you
yeah,
just look at something like what the quantum system, like they make, if they make problems with the quantum system and then just provide us with those solutions to those problems, just fill in those solutions with good gameplay,
yeah.
and we'll just
Exactly.
do it with our friends.
Here's
Kind
the
of like
solution. You guys figure it out. You guys
It's
figure out
simple.
how you're gonna make it.
yeah, reasons to interact with each other. Essentially, like it's the mini game's a means to an end on something like mining. Where because
Yeah.
I think we'll all agree. Like when we've played together, I haven't played with both of you at the same time, but I've played with both of you. When I've played, it's those interactions. Like to me, it's the hanging out and socializing type aspect that kind of carries most of the weight, especially at the moment because the game's fairly light. But I still think that that's going to carry over to the main game, is hanging out with your friends and playing the game. And I think just that
Absolutely.
whether it's you're slaughtering people in, as mercenaries, or we're all saving people together, or mining, or whatever task we're doing, as long as we're doing it together, I think that's where this game is really going to shine. Because in most games, let's be honest, let's look at something like WoW. They're more glorified chat rooms, and the game itself is fairly light, yet but it's lasted almost 20 years at this point. Um, so I think if they can make that deeper than say something like WoW, I think it's got a very bright future.
Yeah. So what's our next point of to talk about?
Um,
We talked about gameplay changing over time. Oh, the phases of a gameplay loop.
yeah,
Hmm.
Did we brush up on that?
no, go for it.
That was Space
This is my
Tomatoes.
point. Yeah. So basically, I wanted to try and break down what you could say was people call gameplay loop. I like to call them professions.
Mm.
But what you could break down as the different phases or steps of a profession. Um, and this was more of a kind of an offhand description. This might not be that well thought out, but we thought I was thinking there's an acquisition phase. For instance, let's take mining.
Well,
This would be
before
scanning,
before you go
figuring out
into
what
it,
you're.
just
Mhm.
real quick, we did do a video on search and rescue and medical, and that
Yeah,
literally is a whole video that breaks down search all that, and that was a couple of weeks ago called
yeah.
In Search of Rescue. So that one will go into detail if you want to see that. But
Link
sorry,
down in the video description
I'll
below.
I'll do something like that. Yeah,
Let
for
them
sure.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for mining, this would obviously be your scanning phase, just finding the rock that you need. Your preparation phase would then be getting the components, the things you need. So this happens in military operation, happens in refueling, it happens in mining, exploration. You assess the situation, you figure out what you need. That should be part of the
Have you
gameplay.
have you been doing much of the stuff with the subcomponents? Because I was talking to Henkin, who's another Star Citizen streamer, and he was
Mhm.
telling me that the new subcomponents really allow you to tailor it to a particular mineral. So he was going out and going for Quantanium that day, and they were not cheap. Some of those subcomponents. He literally said that the subcomponents were more expensive than the most expensive mining head when he brought all three of
Yeah.
them.
I would I would say with my experience with the subcomponents for the general mining experience, it's really not that important.
Yeah,
I found that they didn't make a perceivable difference, but on those use cases like he's talking about, where you need to min max everything you need to get that last chunk of quantanium
yeah.
or crack a 67% rock of laranite, yeah, getting every single percentage out of it is
So,
crucial. And I think
so you're,
that's part of
so you're
this depth.
sorry. So you're describing tailoring it to a specific point, yeah? That's what you're saying? You're
Yeah.
min-maxing. Yeah, sorry. You did say
Yeah, yeah,
min-maxing.
yeah.
My
Min
bad. Sorry.
maxing it. This is it feels like the far end of polishing this iteration of mining. If they're gonna change it, then maybe they'll do more. But I feel like for this basic level of mining, they are getting to that point where they're like, we basically got it figured out in terms of the actual gameplay element. Because adding a couple percentage points to your variables that's tiny.
I don't know. Like, is it going to pay for
Hmm.
itself? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're getting 5% extra Quantanium every run, does that build up? Is that worth the extra $100,000? I think to the right
Uh
person it will be. To another person it
yeah.
won't be because they,
Oh,
I think I think again the best places is going to make a difference is on multi mining vessels
agreed.
where like you said you'll be able to combine stuff in
Yeah,
different lasers to hit those
100%.
specific ores.
I
Yeah.
I see what he's saying. I see what both of you guys are saying, but
Mm.
that's where the whole thing about sacrificing capabilities for X, Y, and Z come into play. Like
Side grade.
back to
Sorry,
the whole
that's a side grade essentially. What you're explaining there, so yeah.
it's a side grade. For example, I did a video about what is long range last year, and the one
Mm.
thing I talked about was sacrificing having a weapon removed and replacing it with a fuel pod with either quantum fuel or hydrogen fuel. Sure, you have less capability to do damage to your enemy, but you have that ability to go further. So what is more important to you, being able to shoot off a couple missiles or being able to go a little bit further? If like you're in pyro and there's not enough fuelers to go around, like real military pilots have to figure this out too. How far am I going? Am I going to have a tanker on station? And do if I don't have enough fuel bags, do I need to add more fuel bags? And my weight's going to be lower. My effective payload's going to be lower, but I'll have more time on station. So I need to maybe bring a couple laser guided bombs and just litter in the area. Or maybe you're executing, you need to go get a cough drop because you're about to die. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
You tell me.
What you're hitting on there is a really important point for why, when we recommend ships through Fix My Fleet and stuff like that, why we recommend versatility so highly. That you've just hit on a really important thing there. Just the ability to change what you do and having fuel drop pods on every single ship. I think that's a really good way to make ships more versatile. And the only reason I think it might not make it in is gameplay balance reasons. They might not want every ship to be able to go long range, but I do agree with you. It'd be a really nice feature to have on so many ships. Um, but yeah, versatility. They're not going to be the best at what they do, but the ability just to not have to buy several ships to do the same job, where you can chop and change between, is definitely going to save a lot of people money. And then I think also on top of that, will allow you to move out. You know what I mean?
Oh, execute. Did you even hear what you just said? You said having one thing that does everything is a little bit better than buying the specialized thing. That's basically something like the Vulcan,
Right. So
where
what
it's
what
something that does a little bit of everything. Sorry, I
so
I
just had to
like the
give you some
so
Vulcan.
so
track. I
what
love the
I'm
Vulcan too.
so what I'm trying to give, or let me kind of rephrase or elaborate then. So what I'm saying is most people, when you come up to the next tier, so say you're coming from like the Auroras and the Mustangs, and you were coming up to say something like the Vulcan, which is a profession starter, you're going to want to go into a profession that's directly in the direction you want to go,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it's also versatile. So for example, say you went like one that's kind of in a weird spot. Let's just take the Vanguard series, which is, I know there's a
Oh,
ship
I
that
knew you were
you
gonna say the Vanguard. I
I knew,
knew it.
yeah, that's why I went there, because I know you used to like this ship, but you have a love hate
Oh, I
relationship with it
used
now.
to. Used
But
to.
you can see though, even in that, just with the three different modules, it's got combat versatility, it's got e-warfare versatility, and it's got long range and a bit of searching and scouting in it, right? So at least
And
then you can buy,
survivability.
yeah, so you can buy one ship and it does a little bit of variety. And then because it's a kind of a weird jack of all trade ship, you can look at those three professions and then eventually go, well, I'm really into e-warfare, so now I'm going to go get like a Raven, or I'm going to get something like that, or maybe I'm into e-warfare, so I'm going to go get an e-warfare type ship. So that's what I'm talking about. I think those first ships that people move up into are going to be that variety. And I think it's the same thing even when you go back to the gameplay loops, where you look at, say, something like an advanced starter, you're going to go into a prospector before you go on into a mole, right? Unless you've just outright brought the mole. Because I'm looking at this not from where we are, where a lot of us here that are pre-established have brought us ships. You've also got to look at gameplay from the point of how they initially expect this game to be go. They're designing it so everyone starts with that starter ship and works their way up. You got to realize that that's going to have a lot of effect on gameplay, how they
I'm
intend
kind
that
of
to go.
I'm kind of worried we've lost track of our main point. We're kind of like drifting away.
I know
I
you.
still know exactly where we are.
Yeah, yeah. So,
You
so
do?
there's a
Yeah.
reason why I brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
my point being is that the gameplay loops essentially are, you need to also look at it based on the scale and the size of the ship.
Well,
And
okay. Okay.
right, what I was trying to get through, and it was a very long-winded way of doing it, was that some ships are going to have lighter gameplay loops than others because they have more versatility, right? And then
Well, yeah, of
and so
course.
what I'm saying is a gameplay loop can actually move through multiple ships. Is essentially what I was saying. So if you have a versatile ship, it's not going to be good as a niche ship, but a niche ship, like the versatility ship, is a stepping stone onto the ship you actually want to get to. So you buy the ship in game that is safer because it does multiple things, right? In case you don't want, for example, say you don't want to do data running, so you get a Mercury Star Runner, and if you don't like data running, you can still at least do cargo. Do you get what you get where I'm trying to go there? That's
Uh,
what I was trying to point out, but I was very long winded.
kind of. The thing that originally we were talking about this episode was the fact that and what we're still talking about right now in theory is that CIG has it. We feel like the developers of the company is going in a direction where they are trying to force these actual gameplay loops you have to go through in order to get things done. When in reality, just getting it done is the gameplay loop in itself.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like is the main topic when it comes to these professions that we're going to be getting. Like, do we need, with the exception of hacking or all these other stuff, it makes sense. You need a game. You need a little mini game for it. But all these other ones for repairing or like repairing like fabrication and all this other stuff. Like, do we need a gameplay loop for it, or just the fact of actually going through and trying to get it done and fixing something? Is it the actual gameplay loop in its, the actual mini game in itself?
I think there's a good point to be made there in that the whole idea of making a game easy to pick up but hard to master. There should be an element of the each gameplay profession that is easy enough for people to do casually, like you're saying, but there also needs to be enough artificial basically blockers built in there to make sure that people can't just jump from being a cargo hauler to a refueling pilot and just nail it and just make a ton of money. So I do kind of get the artificial raising of that difficulty. It might not be the best way to do it, but there does need to be some way that that's done.
All right.
Okay, you just made me thought of something even
Yeah.
better. So I'll be quick.
All
So,
right.
oh, well, not even better, but that has
Go
to do
ahead.
with it. So, okay, fine. You're a cargo hauler. You want to become a refueling pilot. So then your job is to still only fly the ship. You still need somebody, in theory, to control the boom. So then that evolves to using subcomponents. If you just want to do refueling because you don't want to go through the mini game and you want a constant refueling rate in all your ships, then you just hook up the boom and you let the ship do its thing. If you actually want more fine control, you add subcomponents that give you the ability to manipulate things like increase the fuel flow, but you may have back pressure buildup or something like that that you're going to have to finesse, or else you can cause structural damage to your ship or you can cause internal damage to the other ship. That's what I'm saying. Give us the ability to have a mini game if we want to be more advanced, but don't force it on us from the get go.
Sure. And that's why I think there'll probably be refueling done with a multi-tool or a handheld tool.
Yep,
That'll be
there you go.
easier for those people.
Or
S- s-
drones. That's why they have the Vulcan.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of how I need to explain this, what I was trying to get at, and I probably went about explaining it the wrong way. So I'll try and put it this way. If you look at the difference between mining in a prospector and mining in a mole, you can clearly see the difference in complexity because you're working on your own and it's just you, and it's kind of like almost like a tutorial for mining. Then you move up to a mole and you've got to start working with other people and you've got to communicate. You know, it's not just the subcomponents, it's you, the subcomponents. So it becomes a bit more multi-headed. Now you can imagine, because this ship doesn't exist yet, going up to the next level above that and it just goes up to another layer. Right, and then eventually you get to the Orion and it comes to the full-blown complexity where you can go into a niche area. So you might just be the turret operator, but this other guy's the tractor beam operator and this guy's the rock crusher guy. You see what I'm trying to say? That's what I was trying to get at with the as you go up the ship scale thing. I hope I've explained that better now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Get
yeah,
where
I understand what you're
As
saying.
an
You're
okay,
as
basically
a profession improves or grows, it becomes more complex.
yes.
exactly. And the complexity of just getting everything done is the mini game
Yeah.
in itself.
So
Yeah.
so
That's simple.
so to bring this full circle, this is the most long-winded way I've ever done anything. Full circle to go back to where the start of this discussion started. I don't think we really fully have a flushed-out profession that we can sit back and say, "I don't like where you've
No.
gone."
No.
Because
No.
mining, like, let's be honest, mining's probably halfway at the moment with the
Yeah.
mole and the prospector,
Like I said,
and
it's only in
Yeah.
its first form they're getting to
yeah,
that detailed portion.
and then you've got to ask yourself other questions like, are they going to go into a multi-headed ground vehicle? Because at the moment, the vehicle doesn't even reach to the same level of the mole. So like,
They could have with the Rock DS, but no.
Oh
yeah,
man, I heard a lot of bad stuff about it.
it's an easy fix. Just put two seats on it. It'll solve the whole problem. Anyway, is there anything else you want to go over? I think we've kind of gone full
Well,
circle.
yeah, and I actually I'm not going to be able to remember what I was thinking, but I
Sorry.
was going back in my mind about the whole idea of making something complex versus making it simple. And I think it was I was thinking back towards mining. We got ship mining first, which had more types of minerals, had I feel like it was more applied than ground mining. We kind of did ship mining and then went backwards. Hopefully, maybe, Seer, this might help to satisfy you a little bit. Maybe they're talking about the fueling aspect in terms of something a little more advanced than the basic version. Maybe
Yeah,
the more
possibly.
basic version that they're going to give us is going to be just one part of what they're talking about, which I think would be better in your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they did say this is something that I plan in the future, and this is toward the end of the year. And don't get me wrong, like right after they record that episode, they could have just said, you know what, we're gonna scrap it. We're gonna think of something totally different. So it's not like I'm mad about it. I'm not. I understand why they want to do this. It's just I feel like it could be done a little bit differently. I feel like you give the players the ability to add that mini game for more complicated, complex tasks. But if you just want to get the job done and you don't want to have to worry about all that crap that you could deal with, then you still give the players the ability to just get the bare minimum done, which is
So
what they did with subcomponents in a nutshell.
I think that what you're touching on here, Siri, is a fundamental of game design, which is kind of like chess, right? So let's look at chess.
Yeah,
Everyone knows how to play chess, but it can take years to master. And that's essentially
of
what we're
course.
looking for in these mini games. We're looking for a skill-based or knowledge/experience that basically the more time you spend with it, the better you get at it. But like they made with a comment on the fluid dynamics of the refueling, it might take you 30 seconds if you don't know what you're doing, but it might only take you 15 seconds if you do know what you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where they're going with that, but does it really need to be that complex for just transferring fuel? I could understand it
No,
for
absolutely not.
collection of fuel, right? That makes sense. But is the real does that mean the Starfare has two mini games? It's got the collecting and the refueling? Like, maybe that is a thing. I don't know.
Collecting, refueling, cargo, and even combat. If you think about it, it's a flying tank.
Yeah. So does
Not the
that mean
strongest, but
in the cargo they're gonna have like a Tetris screen come down and you've got to shuffle all the boxes into the right order? Like I digress here, but you get where I'm
I
going
hope
for.
not.
Like there
Yeah.
could be some really nonsensical mini games, and I think that's probably our concern at this point. I'm very interested in knowing what the core, and I mean just the core, that core gameplay is for each of those professions. So like with mining, it's holding a bar in a green zone, right? That is essentially the core, right? Medical, you'd have to assume that it's something along the lines of diagnosis. So it's maybe a process of elimination or something like that to get down to what's actually wrong with someone. I'm making a massive assumption here, like massive. But can you see how that could be a thing for
Yeah.
medical? Refueling, pressure, that looks to me like you're trying again, like you're like, and that's why this has all gone full circle. You're trying to keep a bar inside like a zone, and that
Which sounds like
mining, and
mining.
it's a
Hey.
huge concern, and I get where you're going with that. I would go a step further and be great if you could had multiple that you've got to keep in one zone or something like that. I think the gameplay, like you said, should be more something akin to, the rocket from the 1960s, how they had to turn it around and you had to get the the boom, the boom onto the ship. I think that should be the skill, the physical, actual flying and trying to keep shit lined up.
I
I
feel
think
like
that's
Yeah.
that could be
That
just the same as keeping something in the bar. You get a
yep,
triangle and you just have to keep the circle in the middle. It's basically a mini game again, like
exactly.
mining.
exactly. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Literally, that is a boomer's job in real life. That
yep.
could be the mini game in itself. Keeping in a little place because it's just like docking. It's a mini game itself for
Mm.
astronauts when they have to line it up. They have a little box. They have to keep their at the time it was the space shuttle was going to the ISS. They have to keep it within a certain parameter, maintain a constant speed, can't go over. It's the same thing. And then they have to retro burn. That's a mini game in itself. Do that
Yep.
with the Starfare. I don't need to watch a couple levels. Give me data and let me hook up and make that the mini game, because then the better you are as a boomer, the faster you can connect to people and give them fuel when they're in need, even if they're stationary, because I already
S-
said it's not going to be easy when
I,
it's stationary. Imagine when you're good enough where you can keep your Starfare moving and then they can just hit cruise control and they just line up and link up without you becoming a sitting duck.
I'm hoping it's
Wouldn't
a.
that
Go ahead.
wouldn't that technically be the same thing as trying to keep a meter inside of a bar? You're just changing the space and the thing that needs to stay inside of it, right?
In theory, yes, but you're not actually just making a little mini game that you're focusing on. You're focusing on actually trying to, no pun, like everyone's gonna start laughing. You're trying to put something inside a hole. The
Wait,
PG
okay, so
version.
you're talking more about actually seeing yourself doing this in the game than having a graphical representation of it.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
actually seeing the boom move when you're in the console, kind of like with a turret. You move your mouse around, the turret moves around, like for the Valkyrie, your remote gunner seat up on the top of right behind the flight deck. You move your mouse around, you can point the gun within a certain range. Same thing. You access the terminal, you move the boom around with your freaking mouse. You use the scroll wheel to extend and retract the boom. It has the markers red, green, yellow, green means the nominal range, and then you have the same exact thing, yellow, green, then red all the way out there too, so to know your nominal range. And then you just move it around, and then you line up, you link up, and then you try to keep it within that green zone of the boom. Like you would have to watch, like go on YouTube and
Yeah.
watch like an actual tanker boomer, and you'll know what I'm saying, because the boom has color codes so that the pilot and the boomer know when you're too close and too far away before you hit the airplane, or you disconnect from the boom because you're lagging too far behind. You need increased speed. So I mean, it's like that's a mini game right there, and you don't need no crazy graph for getting inside
The
something. Like it's just dynamic. It's
the
just
the
dynamic mini games.
the knowledge there comes
Sorry.
into that's right. The knowledge there comes into when you change ships because the port location will change, and there might
And
be something on certain ships that you've got to navigate around to get the boom arm into position and stuff like that. Because if they made it so that certain ships had a port like on the side at the front, another one that has it on the under the chin above, you see what I mean? So like actually having to know the knowledge of the ship and stuff like that, that's going to add to that as well. But the thing I was going to say before Space Tomato started talking was if they have gameplay in both areas, so it's both the boom and the fluid mixing stuff, that I don't have a problem with. And I'm hoping that there was just a really weird edit that they put into the show and they just missed the whole
I
stuff on the
think it
boom.
was.
It's got to
I
be
think
like
it was.
when you sit back and look at it logistically, like because I think most of us would agree, and the people watching at home, and you guys can let me know in the comments if you think differently. Most of us, when we looked at refining gameplay, was connecting that boom arm, not worrying about pressure or anything like that. And if that is an added gameplay, I have no problem with it. But if the first part of it is actually connecting the boom arm, and then there's another gameplay element that is the pressure, I have no problem with that at all. I just think they need to
Exactly.
elaborate on that and let us know that. Again, communication is key.
I mean, again, this is in such the early stage that even I'm a little frustrated by what they said. But they said they probably don't even. I'm going to assume that they're not going to have a finished product until either this time next year. They may have some kind of demo for Virtual Citizen Con.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to hit the 2021 milestone, but they didn't even hit Pyro. So I mean, I don't think they're going to hit their 2021 milestone. Okay, excuse me. I wouldn't call it a milestone. I don't think it's going to come out in 2021. I think it'll come out sometime in 2022. I think they'll show us a working demo of it in CitizenCon, if anything, and they're going to elaborate more in the future. That's what I feel like. But that was the whole point of me saying, if you want something to be advanced, make the mini game for the advanced feature, so you're not forcing everybody to do the mini game. Allow people to do the basic or bare minimum to get the job done. Make that the easy part, and allow the people who want to make this a profession get into the nitty and gritty of it, so that not only do you have the dynamics of maneuvering and manipulating the boom into the proper position, but then you have the ability to refuel other people faster through understanding the pressure, understanding the how much fuel you're transferring at different transfer rates, and all other garbage. So it's like that's what I was talking about. It's
All
just
right.
giving options.
All right, we're starting to
I'm
repeat
done.
ourselves a bit now. No, that's all right. I think we'll do kind of closing thoughts here.
Mhm.
I'll let you take it away, Space Tomato. And give me yours, and then I'll go, and then let's see you go again.
Well, I think the thing that's been on my mind for most of the last half of this talk is that when it comes to these professions, the biggest thing that we're all really missing is a a golden standard. We don't know what the end
Yep.
is of a developed profession. We don't have proof that they can do it. We don't have proof that they can make it diverse and enjoyable. We're kind of still just sitting right behind the finish line on mining, I feel like.
Yep.
And we won't get a full representation of that till we get a full lineup of ship sizes in one of those professions. But at
Yep.
least knowing the very basic version, knowing what a fleshed out basic version of gameplay looks like, would help so much in like
Yep.
understanding what we can expect. And
It's
I
that
think
lack of communication that I have trouble with. I think
yeah,
that's where you're
I
going
think
here.
honestly, more so than communication, they just don't know. I think they don't
Really?
know
Okay.
the
Yeah.
very, very deep, specific parts of that gameplay. I mean, they have design documents, but obviously they're developing this stuff in real time
Mhm.
with the roadblocks and the things that they run into while they're doing it. So sometimes things just don't work. I think they just don't know, so they can't tell us. Because they can't tell us, we can't know, and we can't be confident about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we've got to give them a bit of leeway to get one finished. Even for me, I actually think you could almost skip. Let's say mining, you could actually skip and go straight to the Orion because at least seeing the two extremes, you can kind of work out what's in the middle anyway. So that would be the fastest way for us to see it. But I do think you're kind of right. They are taking their time with it and doing R&D, and I do think they're really strongly going into mining because once they figure out that multiplayer aspect, as we alluded on to today, I think that will fold out, so to speak, to other professions on what they want to hit. I think you're kind of right in a way, though. They are trying to still figure out what this game is going to be. Yeah. See your
And you're
thoughts.
gonna see the comments down below after saying something like that. 9 years and they still don't know. Yeah, because things change.
Maybe
Like,
they.
everything changed.
I think we'll put it this way: best laid plans. That's what game design documents are. They're best laid plans, and I don't think you'll ever have
Yeah,
talked to a
I
game
mean,
designer where the final document that they made, as they hand it off to the people to make it, very rarely would I say that translates all the way through. But best laid
we've
plans.
seen enough high quality examples and things like Cyberpunk, and I guarantee you there are gameplay elements in Starfield that they don't even have conceptualized yet, and we're gonna probably get that game in the next year and a half. So
How many ships have been reworked in Star Citizen? I'll leave
they're
it at
not
that.
conceptualized.
You know,
I forgot.
yeah, too many have been
R&D.
reworked. So yeah, see your
Yeah,
closing
yeah.
thoughts. We need to put a time on it,
so
Seer.
no, it's gonna be short. So
All right.
here's two things I'll leave you with. Here's two things I'll leave you guys with. That are gonna be watching this. One, just because I work on a tanker doesn't mean I know everything. Again, these were just all my thoughts. And like Space Tomato said, we do not know what they're planning to do, and so just like that's all I really have to say about that. I really can't wait for refueling either way because that's my thing. I love refueling. And about everything that's going on with CIG, I said this in a stream, I think at the beginning of last year with on Astropub, and Jared was in here and he agreed with me. The only thing that is dynamic about Star Citizen right now is the dates they give us. That's the only thing that's ever dynamic.
Yeah.
This is not a shot at CIG. It's just
Mm.
the ambition they have to get the stuff they want done. It just everything about this game is dynamic, including the dates they give you. All like everything they say is subject to change. Dates are subject to change, so it's like everything here is dynamic. So like I look forward to see what they have for this year going forward in Invictus Week. Well, that's just you said it's coming around the corner soon.
Yeah, it's May. Yeah, it's not far away. Look,
Yeah.
you kind of hit on a point here that we do at Inforunners. We are giving a critique, but we're doing it in a non-harsh manner. We're not insulting CID. We're just saying, hey, we're curious.
Oh, no.
Please fill us in. We'd love to know more. Like that's basically what we're asking for is a bit more information. And I don't think we're the only ones out there that are looking like. How often have we been talking about gameplay loops? I've been looking forward to gameplay loops for since 2014. You know, so and at the moment we've fundamentally got combat, a bit of cargo, and a bit of mining. And there are some actual tangible gameplay loops on the beginning of for this year. They're on the roadmap, so I think this will be the first year where we're getting like a little bit more. And I actually think, as you kind of alluded to, Seer, it will probably take until the end of next year till we get them to a polished state where we go, well, at least I can see where this is going now. And we've all wanted that for a while. And I think that's the fundamental problem we all here would agree, I'm sure, is that they're working on Squadron 42 and not so much on the persistent universe. So it's but that's a good thing. You guys correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it shows that they're starting to close up Squadron 42. I think that's a good thing.
I think it
that's
depends on who you ask if it's a good thing, but I think overall for the
Possibly.
project, Squadron 42 will be, if it's a success, will be vastly helpful.
Yes. It'll definitely speed up production on the PU. All right, then. I think we'll kind of leave it there. If you want to leave us a comment below and let us know your thoughts on what you think of today's show. Yeah, say hello. We definitely will read them. I try to reply to as many as possible. Leave a hashtag Jaden for your chance to win an F7A upgrade and Super Hornet as he is passed away and it's looking for a new home. All right, with that all said, he's been Space Tomato. Where can since you're both here, where can people find you, Space Tomato?
Oh boy, all over the place. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Just Google me, Space Tomato Gaming. I'm on all this stuff. I actually just started a TikTok like 2 days ago for Star Citizen stuff. I'm going to see what it can do.
I'm not going to watch you dance. No, that's not happening.
I'm not dance. If you would see all the complaints I get from putting YouTube shorts up on my channel, you'd know why. Yeah.
All right. I will go read those. All right, and Seer, I know you haven't done a video in a while, but where can people find you? And if you'd like to share,
you can find me on YouTube. Just Google Seer the Sixth or type in Seer the Sixth. There's only one in the internet. Thank God.
All right, then we'll leave you guys with it, and we'll see you next time.